Hey ho, let's go. Welcome back. Fantasy Baseball Now. As you know, the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame ballot is out. We're going to dive into it with a few of our valued guests and also update the hot stove season as the LA Angels of Anaheim, whatever they call themselves, continue to just add guys. But before that, as we always do each week, we begin the show by asking you the question, where else would you rather be than right here? Boom! Right now. You are looking live at our split studios. This is Fantasy Baseball Now, episode 16, the Jim Plunkett edition, is here for our show, part of the Ball9.com podcast network. With the combined 70 years of fantasy baseball experience, Mike and I are here to talk about Major League Baseball with a fantasy baseball spin. Before that, though, I think we both mutually agreed we would propose segment one to feature the state of the New York Jets and the savior Aaron Rodgers.
I found it interesting that you mentioned Jim Plunkett because he knows when to clap, I'm pretty sure. And the grand conspiracy, thanks to the Raiders for fueling the grand conspiracy that the Chiefs get every single break by giving them one.
They do. Well, Uncle Ted is already with us. Uncle Ted, thank you for joining us once again. We're waiting. We see somebody coming in, one of our valued guests. Let me get that camera thing going on and we'll be all set. But Mike, what's going on? Baseball. I know Scott Boras was with Blake Snell today in LA. I assume he's probably going to be talking to Juan Soto a lot. We can get to that a little further in the show.
He just added to the $1 billion in deferrals that the Dodgers have on their payroll. $1 billion.
Yep.
Dollars in deferrals. I saw the other day they're paying Teoscar until like 2036.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I'm more distraught that Yogi Berra Jr., Kai Higashioka signed with Texas, where baseball players go to die.
Or win a World Series.
Win a World Series. Yeah, he probably will win a World Series.
Welcome back, Emily. Here is our postseason show. We have a few more people coming in. We think Rocco was just trying to make a connection, had to work on that computer. And El Jefe, the creator of Ball9.com, Chris Vitale.
Shockingly, he's running late, and it's Kevin Costner's fault, and he can tell the story. Even he's going to tell it anyway, so he's going to tell the story. We might get Frank at Not Gaetti at 9 to pop in and defend his Hall of Fame ballot. And I'm sure Rocco's going to have David Wright on his, and we'll make fun of that because come on now.
You want me to send you mine?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you you got a Christmas tree, I see.
Nice tree back there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I do. You know, it's that time of year, fellas.
It is that time. It's 'tis the season. After it was determined that if you have turkey dinner and then followed up the next day with a Polish dinner, that you should have a hazmat license for the third day.
That's a personal problem.
That was a 26 degrees. My dog didn't want to be in the house. I mean, that's unbelievable. Just not good. That's just not good. And then I got dragged into a club in Philadelphia on Saturday night that looked like that Christmas tree. It's 100% decorated for Christmas. Like the club's name is Tinsel.
Oh, that's cute.
I like that.
As my friend would say, I felt like a size 12 foot and a size 4 shoe. I was looking for anybody else in a place that had gray hair. But admittedly, when people started wanting to sit on my lap and ask for presents, I started to warm up to the idea.
Okay, I can get used to this.
Hey, this isn't so bad after all. Yeah, craziness. Clubbing's a young man's game.
Hall of Fame. I want to, before we get to it, the biggest thing I want to talk about, let's get the big one out of the way. Emily, where do you stand on the quote steroid guys, Pete Rose, permanently ineligible? Where were you on that?
Wait, before you answer, before you answer. This can't be a 30-minute love letter to A-Rod. It can't be.
Please no.
It was a general question. It wasn't. He didn't
Well, if
mention
that's
any names. I knew where you were already going. We're not doing that.
If that's a stipulation, then I don't really have much else to say besides a 30-minute rant. The way I see it is that steroids I'm okay with. I really draw the line personally at violence against women and children. So anyone who's crossed that line credibly is a big no for me. As far as the steroids are concerned, I understand and I can respect why people have the line drawn in terms of, okay, like if they were actually suspended, like an A-Rod or a Manny Ramirez, then that counts them out. I respect that. But I do also kind of think that, is that really the point of the Hall of Fame? You know what I mean? Like, is the point to be sticklers about that, especially for guys that weren't really suspended or guys that didn't test positive and there was other things going on that got them suspended? Like, I don't know if it's really for me to say, but as far as my ballot's concerned, steroids wasn't a thing. And as far as Pete Rose, no, he broke the one rule that like they tell you shouldn't break and has been around for 100 years, and he did it anyway. And also he is a rapist. So that's a big no for me.
Yeah, there's that. That didn't help. That's for sure. My Pete Rose stance has been consistent, and it'll remain consistent until forever. When Joe Jackson is given consideration for the Hall of Fame, we can have a conversation about Pete Rose. Until that time, then there's no conversation.
Right.
If this quote unquote morals clause, which is really upheld by a bunch of mostly butthurt baseball writers that maybe guys were mean to, so they don't want to vote for him. Jeff Kent would be a great example of that.
Yeah.
Like if they're the ones that are upholding it and you're not on the ballot. If they're on the ballot, then the Hall of Fame is basically saying we're going to let you guys decide, which is kind of a cop out, to be quite honest with you, because they could put him in, and they could put him in with a disclaimer. I mean, they could put him in, they could put on their plaque, shamed from the game for this or whatever, and then let the player decide if they want to accept the honor or not. Put it back on them.
Yeah.
But I think there's growing sentiment as some of the older writers are no longer voting that it won't be like the guys will get in and it will be like, it's not a big deal. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's, steroids are betting on baseball by a lot because like baseball allowed it to happen. Right. And the guy that allowed it's in the Hall of Fame.
Sure.
Right.
On top of that.
Exactly. He was literally leading the ship when it all went down and was totally okay with it. And wasn't going to do anything about it until Congress was like, you have to do something about this. And he was like, oh, fine. And then they put him in the Hall of Fame, but no one else. Kind of weird.
Yeah, that's crazy. Rocco, how are you?
Les Expos.
How's it going, guys?
Hey, Rocco.
Hey, Emily. How's it going?
Hey, what's up, back. Rocco?
Thanks.
Welcome back. We were just having a conversation about steroids, and I had to stop them. I had to stop them from a love letter to A-Rod.
You're just in time for Act 2.
She was just
about to get going.
In that Lego star on top of her Christmas tree is A-Rod's face. The Christmas angel.
There you go. Put him in. Put him in the hall.
Agreed. Thank you, Rocco.
That's what I say.
Knew I always liked you.
Put them all.
Yeah, that's what I said. I mean, at this point, you're sitting there trying to figure out who took them, who didn't take them, who got caught. It's I'm not into holding that against them. They were incredible players, steroids or not. Have shifted into the put them all in anyway.
I think eventually it will. All right, so let's talk about who's on the ballot. This time around, we're going to pop this up and go through just some of the first year guys, I think, that stand out for me. I'll tell you, the guy who has me most perplexed on this list is Felix Hernandez. I'm not sure what to do with that. My feeling is no. If I had a ballot, he wouldn't be on it. I don't think he did it for as long as he needed to. And, he had a couple great years. He had a dominant run, but it was probably 3 or 4 years, not longer.
Right.
For that, is there anybody else on that list that you got to really kind of dive into? Or, to me, if I can't answer in 5 seconds that somebody should be in the Hall of Fame, then the answer is probably no. But I actually spent more time researching it this year for a few of those people. Is there anybody like that for you? Well, Rocco, why don't you start?
I think Felix is a really interesting case too. He was always one of my favorite guys. I'd always, I'd like to be able to dive into his stats and find a way to, to justify him being in there. He'd be a no for me right now. But I think I got to look it up. But I kind of pick his peak on being a little bit longer than just a few years. And I kind of what I want to do. I've been looking a lot into the committee era stuff because that's coming up first. But once that's done, I liked Mike and the Mad Dog used to always do a thing where how many Hall of Fame years did you have? And Felix had that chunk. I got, like I said, look it up, but I feel like it was more like a 6 to 7 year in a row type of thing. And I want to compare that to some of the other guys, even like a Kurt Schilling, who had those type of years, but more spaced out throughout his career. And Kurt Schilling's got the postseason stuff and all that, but Felix is definitely the one guy I want to dive into. He's got a bunch of top 5 Cy Young awards in a row, as far as votes are concerned.
Well, he made 6
I'm
All-Star
sure.
teams.
Yeah, I'm sure
won at least
multiple
6
ERA
years.
titles, and I always really liked him. He's the guy I really want to dive into.
Yeah, the other guy for me that I really looked at, and I added him to my graphic, is I get Ichiro, I got Sabathia. I think he's earned it. He deserves it. Andrew Jones should be in, I think, but Carlos Beltran became a yay for me today. Over 400 homers, 300 steals, 5-tool guy, had some monster years, 9 times All-Star. But yeah, that would be my ballot if I had a ballot.
And one of the greatest switch hitters of all time.
Yeah.
In the game.
I mean, he's safely in the top 10
for me too.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Emily. But yeah, to me, he's easily one of the great 10 best switch hitters to ever play. And he was always an easy. He should have been a first teamer. He's always. I'm a Mets guy. He was my guy when I really liked him a lot. But I know he's dinged by the cheating controversy and all that. But I don't think his career should be defined by that. I think he's on the way there.
Mike, why don't you give yours? You have a guy on the list, and Emily can pick up on it because you both have him down on your chart.
Well, Ichiro and CC are no-brainers. To me, Billy Wagner's a Hall of Famer. And, I mean, Francisco Rodriguez is on this ballot this year. And frankly, if Billy Wagner doesn't make the Hall of Fame, I don't know if any other reliever should make the Hall of Fame after him. He was – so he's the first pitcher I ever saw live throw 100. So I got that going for me, which is good. But he was dominant. He was dominant. And he was still dominant when he was still really good when he retired. He probably had a couple years left in him. He was starting to get some nagging injuries, and I think that's what did it for him. But he was an elite closer for a long period of time. And at a time when, I mean, it was Rivera, Hoffman, and him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think he was better than Lee Smith. Lee Smith had a lot of innings, right? Which is a different conversation altogether. Bruce Sutter, those guys that were multiple inning closers, that's a different category of closer than, he was the 1 inning guy, and he was as good at it as anybody. And I think he should be in. Andrew Jones, I agree with.
Defense counts.
And he's a little like Eddie Murray in a way that like he never led the league in anything, but he was such a great center fielder, and his stats are still really good for that position. And I wonder if he gets hurt. We mentioned this before. If he gets hurt a little bit by the position by the position. You know, he's a center fielder, and then you start comparing him to Mays, Mantle, DiMaggio. That's a tough reach. So, you know, if he's getting compared to those guys, Junior, you know, Griffey Jr., he gets compared to those guys. The guy for me that I think should be in is Bobby Abreu. So there are two players in Major League Baseball that have 1,400 runs, 1,400 walks, 1,300 RBIs, and 400 stolen bases. Bobby Abreu is one of them. Barry Bonds is the other. Two players in the history of the game. They hated him in Philadelphia. They hated him. Because every once in a while he'd miss a fly ball and it'd skim off his hat. But he was an on-base machine. He drove in a ton of runs. He had a really good arm in right field. He was a really, really good player.
The way I see it also with like Bobby Abreu and Andrew Jones, and it's how I felt, frankly, about Scott Rowland, is that you can't, if you're going to keep the best players of that era out for reasons of, you know, steroid use, suspected steroid use, whatever, then you have to let the guys that were overshadowed by them in. You can't have this entire gap of baseball's history, which is arguably one of the best ever and help bring the game into the modern era that we are in now.
Right.
You can't keep them out of the Hall of Fame and say, well, then no one from this era is a Hall of Famer. And this guy's not good enough because he's being compared to guys who, you know, allegedly use steroids or they were found to have used steroids. So it kind of, I don't know, it's kind of weird. Like, you have to acknowledge this era of the sport, if for no other reason. And that's how you keep fans. Because imagine, I mean, for me personally, that's the league that I grew up with. So if the writers and the Hall of Fame are going to pretend like it didn't exist and ignore it because of something that was not really controlled by the league, that was basically okayed by the commissioner for all intents and purposes, then why should I bother following? What if some scandal comes out now and then they do the same thing with this generation? Like, what's the point?
Right. This generation's scandal will be gambling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's bound to
cyclical.
happen. That's bound to happen for sure. Rocco, how about you? Where are you at with this?
Abreu, I definitely see the case. I'd be a no on him. I think, to me, Bernie Williams, you know, it'd be, that was something that wouldn't jive with me, is having Abreu in there, but not Bernie. I think similar type of players. I think they're both eventually going to get in. I mean, we see it as we've been getting older. So a lot of guys that we watched growing up that we never thought of were Hall of Famers are now in there.
Right.
I think, as you know, just as the eras go by and people are looked at people different ways, you get that. And when you look at Bobby Abreu, he was, you know, filling up the stat sheet for a long time. You mentioned all those stats. He's got the, you know, these doubles, triples, he's stealing bases, he walks. I mean, he's doing everything out there. And again, you know, the guy who's a good guy and respected guy in baseball. I always, Andrew Jones, I've always been and I'm putting all these people in. I'm usually a small hall guy, but like you said, you know, defense counts. He's on the short list of the best center fielders of all time, and he's got 400 homers and all the postseason stuff. So, you know, I get that his career fell off. His second half wasn't what it should have been. But I think he's somebody that gets over the top too eventually. And I like Wagner too. My quick story with Wagner was, we're friends with Phil Cuzzy, the umpire. He's from the same hometown as us. I remember asking him one time, is there a guy who is the toughest pitcher for you to umpire for? And he said Bobby Wagner. He said, I can't have trouble picking up the ball out of his delivery. It's on you before you even know it. I don't know how the hell anybody hits him. Not that puts him in the Hall of Fame, but, you know, I just thought that was that, you know, that perspective from that umpire. And Wagner seems to have a lot of support from the guys he played with and against.
But to me, it's the interesting debate on the Hall of Fame and the voters. Wagner 73.9% last year, needs 75. What would change in 9 years to get the handful of people to say, you know what, I'm going to give it to him on his last year? What changes? You know, if he didn't get their vote now, after 9 years, what's going to change? I think he'll get it. I don't know if it's a
Yeah, it's a
sympathetic
good
thing or people just have more
Well,
time.
it's his last year on the ballot.
New voters
It's last year on
too.
the ballot.
There's at least 10 rookie voters this year.
Oh, good point.
Okay. Wow. I like that, Emily. Nice job.
Yeah,
I'm here
I
for.
mean, yeah, when you come that close, you usually get over the top the next year. I really think he'll get in this year.
And the way we analyze the sport, and I think especially a role like a relief pitcher and a closer, the difference between even a decade from 9 years ago is a lot different. The way that people in general and even writers themselves, they can come around on that sort of thing. I mean, not all of them. Some of them are just as stubborn as the rest of us. But I think that that's why they probably give them 10 years, because the way we view the game and the way we analyze things change.
Yeah, and a writer that was used to, Tom Seaver throwing 39 complete games is not going to look at closers the same way that a writer that started covering the game 10 years ago is going to, when closers were a key and prevalent part of the game. They're just going to look at it. It's been part of their writing life the entire time they've been writing, as opposed to it happened to come on and you're comparing it to, like we do a lot. We're comparing it to what we used to like. We'll get into Golden Bat at some point. I just threw up in my mouth even saying it.
Yeah, I that's something I heard about a few times today and decided to take 10 seconds to find out what that was. And yeah, that was.
I tried to start an asshole chant on my street today when I read that.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Golden Bat. Maybe we'll wait for El Jefe Vitale. He can tell us after his Kevin Costner bit. But is there somebody on here that should get more love that probably doesn't? Other than, the Mannies and A-Rod and all that stuff. Is there somebody on this list that's probably never going to come close to where they really should be for the Hall? A guy like, I don't know, Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley.
Chase Utley for sure.
Chase Utley. Emily?
Yeah, I think Chase Utley for sure. I mean, I think that second base is an oft overlooked position in terms of when we talk about greatness and legendary players in the Hall of Fame status. So I think in terms of all second basemen of all time, he was pretty good. I mean, he's up there with some of the best of them in some statistical categories. So why not him? I mean, he's one of the best second basemen of his whole generation. So we have to. I think that it's fair. It's more fair to compare. You can compare it to past players from those same positions, but also compare him to his own generation and his own colleagues rather, and counterparts. And I think that he stands out.
Rocco, how about you?
I hate Chase Utley. I was at the game booing him when they played the Mets in the playoffs after breaking Ruben Tejada's leg. But he had a pretty good showing for him on the first ballot last year. He was at 28%. I think that's a good starting point for him. Just by comparison, we're mentioning Bobby Abreu. I mean, he's somebody that started at about 6% and has slowly creeped his way up to about 15. So I want to, I'll be looking at Chase Utley to see if that number jumps, above 30% this year, above 35%, if it's stagnant. Somebody definitely to monitor as things go there. And another person I'm doing that with is David Wright. He's not a Hall of Famer to me. Obviously, as a big Mets fan, he's one of my guys. But he stayed on the ballot by only a few votes last year. It'd be cool to see him stick around. I think he was at 6% last year. So those are a couple guys I'd like to just kind of track.
He's probably a victim to the short career.
Yeah.
He's a victim to the short career.
As we welcome in El Jefe, the creator, Mr. Vitale, I want to throw a name at you guys before I hear about the Kevin Costner story. And are you wearing a suit jacket?
No, it's a shitty hoodie thing I bought in Dallas at a Target because I was freezing my balls off.
It did look like a lapel.
I thought so too.
You know what? I should put a little boutonniere on for you guys.
You could.
Why not?
All right, especially with three Yankee fans here. Dustin Pedroia, I don't think he did enough for long enough. He was a gamer. He was but this isn't the Hall of Very Good. It's the Hall of Fame. That's kind of where he falls there for me.
2 weeks ago, I said maybe he should get some consideration. And then I dove into Utley versus Pedroia's stats. He's not Chase Utley. He was the heart of that team. He was the heart of those teams.
He's like an 8th ballot guy to me. Like, you know, he's one of those guys where it's like if you get in, like okay, Pedroia's in. But he's just one of those guys that's like, just let him hang on for a while, because he did a lot, and he had a great quote, you know, about standing on the MVP trophy because then he'd be taller. But I mean, he's yeah, I mean, I hate the Red Sox, but I got a lot of respect for Pedroia, and I don't even know where the hell this conversation's going, but sorry. I just got home. My computer doesn't work. I'm on a laptop, so I don't know if you can even hear me.
Speaking of that, as I often heard throughout my collegiate, well, not I didn't go to class in college, but in high school, when I was tardy, the teacher would stop the class and say, "Mr. Martin, where have you been? Why are you late?" So, Mr. Vitale, I hear there's a reason why you were just a little bit behind on the clock today.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a good one.
It's Kevin Costner.
Yeah, that doesn't mean it's a good reason. No, no, one of my buddies is okay. Here's the weird part. Kevin Costner's in this band, right? And you know, who knows? Everybody's got a friggin' band. It's like everybody's got a podcast like this. But
exactly.
no, so the other night, right before I went to go to my mom's in Florida, we went down there for Thanksgiving. They were out here. My buddy is their road manager for this band. So he's like, "Oh, we're going to be down in Palm Springs, blah, blah, blah. Costner's playing." I was like, "I don't give a shit if he's playing, but I'll come see you. I haven't seen you in a while." So I go down there. It's, I mean, I'm sitting next to like a guy in a wheelchair with a friggin' oxygen tank because, really, it's Kevin Costner's band. So after the show, they have this little, after party thing and whatever. So we're hanging out. I couldn't get 2 words in edgewise because there were 65-year-old women just swarming him, because I really wanted to ask him not about Bull Durham, not about the
Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams, thank you. But I wanted to ask about Billy Chappell and that one and the Clear the Mechanism and that whole thing. And so it was about a 4-minute conversation about baseball. And then I guess I left my credit card there. So I just got back from Florida. Couldn't find my damn credit card. Drove down there. They were like, "Oh, you were with the Costner party." I was like, "Yeah, I don't give a shit. Give me my card." So I just got home. I still don't have a Christmas tree. Em's got one behind her. And that's about that. So yeah, I just got back from that.
That was a good story.
Not really. Not really.
Thanks for the new refrigerator.
To bill it as the Kevin Costner story, and then you just completely gloss over. You're like, "I saw him play. I asked him a few questions, and that was it."
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, look, he's a good-looking man, and there's a reason that that he was just being bombarded with 60 to 70-year-old women and some younger ones too with Yellowstone shirts and their fake
You know what it's like to walk in my shoes for 5 minutes, man.
I can't even imagine how you do it, brother. I don't know how you do it.
It's not easy being me.
But that is why I'm late, so I apologize to the class.
All right. Your Hall of Fame ballot, my friend. Where do you land on some of these guys?
As far as who I really think should be in, on this one for sure, I think there's 2 locks, and that's obviously Ichiro. Come on, I mean,
yeah,
come on. I'd be shocked if he's not the second unanimous player to be voted in, and Billy Wagner, man. I think Wagner, he fall 5 votes short last year. I think, you can say something about longevity, but bullshit to that. He pitched till he was 38, had a great year in his age 38 season. He was an all-star, etc. Could have pitched a couple more years, but he walked away. Guy had something like 900 innings pitched as a reliever. I think he's the godfather of the modern closer. Guy was dominant. It's just, and I think it's his time. CC, I think, is also. I think CC might get in on this one.
Yeah.
I think he's a Hall of Famer for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if he gets in on this one or the next one, but I could see those three getting in on this one. Unless, Curtis Granderson paid off a bunch of people and was like, "Hey." But no, those three for sure. CC obviously, again, you can't compare eras, but what does he have? Something like 250 wins. He's won 20 games. Part of the Black Aces, lefty, he was dominant for that short period of time. He only had the one Cy Young, but he's got a ring, and who were CC's contemporaries? Roy Halladay, maybe Mark Burley, guys of that nature, and he's right there with them. And I think CC, if not a first ballot, maybe second or third, just because writers are dicks. But did I say that? Sorry.
Yeah. But I think you look at
not mine.
So next year, the two highlight first ballot Hall of Famers are Cole Hamels. You got to make it. CC was better than Cole Hamels.
Yes, he was. And again,
and Ryan Braun. And Ryan Braun is not getting in the Hall of Fame.
He's not getting it.
Not going to happen.
Unless, you know what? I want to see A-Rod get in. I want to see Manny get in.
If A-Rod and Manny get in this year, then Ryan Braun will get a lot more votes next year. But he's still,
Ryan Braun was Ryan Braun. He was just
right.
He was really good.
He was with
he was on the Brewers. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, he was really good. He was like a douchier Christian Yelich, but I mean,
who knew that was possible?
But
he seems like a nice guy, Yelich.
I know. I don't have any opinion on him at all. I don't know why.
I don't know. Like, why not? Let's go with it. But
you wish you knew how some of these writers thought, or maybe you don't. To be quite honest with you, maybe you don't.
I know how too many of them think, and I'm glad I just don't give a shit anymore.
But,
I mean, it just look. A-Rod deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, right? Can we agree on that? Manny Ramirez deserves to be in the fucking Hall of Fame, right? Okay. So I don't want to hear any more about the steroid shit. I just don't. It's enough's enough. I mean, we don't know who did what that's in there already. I mean, we know who's been suspected and who's in. Biz Hoppy, but it's not, again, it's not baseball heaven. It's a friggin' museum. Put the guys in that deserve to be in there. Yep. And that's just my thing. So I'd love to see A-Rod and Manny get in as well. But who the hell knows? Everybody's got, maybe Manny decided that he didn't speak English that day, so he didn't give an interview. So these guys are going to hold a grudge, and then he's not getting in. Right. But my main three, obviously Ichiro. Like I said, CC maybe this year, but he'll get in eventually. But Billy Wagner needs to get in there, because if he doesn't, if like I said, if Wagner doesn't get in there, I mean, you're going to have a whole generation of closers and relievers that are out there now. And how important is relief pitching now? Now that starters aren't going as long, and they're never going to get in if Billy Wagner doesn't get in. So they better be pulling for him.
Well, K-Rod's praying that he gets in, because he'll never get in. He won't get it. He won't stand a chance.
And again, of course, you're not Mo. You're not Trevor Hoffman. You're not looking at 500-600 saves, but you're looking at guys. Something like, I heard something recently that Billy Wagner, if you take his innings pitched and go with his whip is second only to Addy Joss. Rocco, Frank.
Yeah, absolutely.
Addy Joss.
Hall of Famer.
Ever heard of him?
Not enough people talk about him. Welcome, Frank. It's a good segue.
On that note, there you go.
I do like that. So Frank at Night Guy Eddie with a little shameless self-promotion with the hat. Wow. And the more he wears the hat, the more he's actually starting to look like the hat, which is it's kind of like Zelig, if you've ever seen that movie. Like he's just
the Woody Allen movie.
He's chameleoning into that hat.
You should see me with sunglasses. I'm looking more like the Avatar every day.
Yeah, well, knowing that this isn't quite the brightest group of people that you're surround yourself with most of the time, you don't really need the sunglasses. Though Emily's Christmas trees sparkle.
Terrible.
Thank you.
I dig the tree.
The only one. Yeah, it's the only one with the spirit.
It's a lovely tree. Yes.
Thank you.
We're just going through our ballots. You want to rip through your grand announcement? I was trying to find it.
Yeah, so
I told him post, but I couldn't before you came on.
So in the past, I had filled out ballots and posted it, and then this year I did. I expanded the process a little bit, and we had 4 voters just so that there was the possibility of hitting an even 75% without having to, be unanimous. And so the ancillary characters of the Not Gaetti universe filled out ballots, and I appreciate them taking the time to do that. Of course, my wife picked all kinds of guys that she just really likes from MLB Showdown. So, somebody commented like, "Oh, did she invite Torrey Hunter to your wedding too?" But no, I'm Big Hall, and the thing that surprised me about my ballot is that even though I'm exceedingly Big Hall, I only used 7 votes, and I surprised myself by doing that. I didn't see myself wanting to use all 10 just for the sake of using all 10, but since I had room, I went through and took really close looks at a few guys. If I was going to use all 10, the guys I was very close to giving votes to were Jimmy Rollins, who has some numbers that work against him, but in the context of shortstops historically, he did a lot of things really well. He was a good shortstop. He stole a lot of bases. He had a few years where he hit really well at a position that, historically did not provide a lot of offense, had a long career. I could see him getting votes. I just wasn't quite there. And then the other 2 I looked at were K-Rod, which I like counting stats, right? He's got a lot of saves. He's the single season saves leader. We see more and more with teams cycling through closers, people losing the job. It's like a lot of teams are willing to ride the hot hand for the 9th inning job. And when you look at K-Rod's career, like well over 400 saves, had 62 saves one year, that's the kind of consistency teams wish they could see in a closer. Ultimately, I did not give him my vote. What I did was I ran a stat head versus comparison between K-Rod, Lee Smith, who I think is in the Hall of Fame, but one of the less dominant Hall of Famers, and then Billy Wagner, who I think should get in, is extremely dominant on a rate basis, but doesn't have the counting stats. And the thing I noticed was that in the 3-way side-by-side between Wagner, K-Rod, and Lee Smith, K-Rod was the leader in absolutely nothing. And so that's the reason I was like, this guy's got good counting stats, but not Lee Smith good. And he's got middling rate stats, not Wagner good. So I ultimately did not vote for him. And then, I also looked at Burley a little bit, Felix Hernandez, but ultimately, I do still think K-Rod is closer to the top of the pantheon of closers than Felix is to the top of the pantheon of starters.
That's fair. I think that's fair.
And so I couldn't bring myself to vote for King Felix if I couldn't bring myself to vote for K-Rod. And then obviously you see that all the Not Gaettis sort of drew a line at roid use, okay, roid suspension, not okay. We didn't plan that. We all voted for Pettit independently. He was not caught. He was contrite. He was remorseful. He had good, prolific postseason pitcher. Plus, we're like Yankee homers, so he was going to get some votes. But no, nobody voted for A-Rod or Manny, which I thought was interesting. I thought somebody was down to. The numbers are there, but I think for me to throw my support behind A-Rod and Manny, 2 of the greatest right-handed hitters of all time, bar none, they would just need to change the voting criteria to no longer have the character clause. If they get rid of the character clause, and I'm going by numbers, I'm going to be the first guy to say, let's carve Barry Bonds a plaque. Let's carve Manny Ramirez a plaque.
Yeah. I have a question. Hey, by the way, I did forget Pettit because I just ran in here and I was just trying to rattle shit off. So I absolutely agree with Frank. I mean, Pettit, Pettit, sure. I believe Pettit should be in there. But I do have a question, and again, this comes down to, hey, man, they put Bud Selig in. So what does that say? I look, I mean, hey, Rob Manfred has shown himself to make Bud Selig look like, the best commissioner ever, like Pete Rozelle, who just, brought the NFL together. But he's in there. So, and he knew about all of this. So how does that affect your guys? How does that affect your guys' view of the character clause? And does that kind of give a little bit of leeway to some of these guys like A-Rod or like a Manny, and I'll shut up and listen?
What's the message, right? Like, is the role of commissioner, is he in charge of the league? Is he the one that, his head's on the chopping block when things aren't going right? He's the spokesman for the league. Does that matter that he was, steering the ship? Is that a term? Or did I just make that up?
Yeah,
You guys get the gist.
No, it works.
He was in charge. He knew what was going on. He didn't care because it helped his bottom line and helped him become arguably the most successful commissioner of all time in terms of dollar amounts. And as far as the character clause is concerned, I think it's important. I don't really know how I feel about things like steroids being necessarily considered a character flaw in comparison to the other character flaws that are kicking guys out. Especially you're talking about the amount of money at stake, and also how valued longevity is in this sport, and how difficult it is to stay in the game for a long time, especially when you're playing at the highest level and you're playing hard every single day for 6 months. Selig's in, these guys should be in. I mean, give me a break.
Exactly. That's my view on it. I agree. Next.
Sean's like a 1967 Godzilla movie right now, where he's talking, but the voice he's talking, but his voice won't start actually saying something.
Somehow my mic got muted. I have no idea how that happened.
Oh no, it's Godzilla. It was like,
Rocco, any thoughts on? I mean, it is a double standard. Back to Emily's point, back in the day when MLB would advertise the All-Star game, they had caricatures of McGuire and Sosa and all them, and then hulking out of their uniforms. So they certainly profited off it and potentially might have saved the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely true, and that's kind of what you saw with, and we didn't get to see that with Selig's case. All the steroid guys that should be in on numbers generally get between 30 and 40% support on the ballot. That's where they peak on that, in that method. They got kicked to the committees last year, and not one of them, they were in the also-rans, less than 3 votes. They got no support whatsoever. But when Selig got kicked to the committee, he got in nearly unanimously. Only 15 out of the 16 voted for him and put him in. Maybe they watched, I don't know if any of you guys ever went to Miller Park, but if you do, there's a thing called the Bud Selig Experience, and it's a legit brainwashing film built into the stadium. I'm telling you, you sit there, you watch it, it's 10 minutes long, and at the end, there's an actual hologram. A curtain opens up, you look through a window, and there's a hologram Bud Selig there in his office with his hands in his pocket and his tie. It looks perfect. It looks like he's right there talking to you. And then you go, it's the whole brainwashing thing. So I don't know, maybe they showed the committee that brainwashing.
Do they try to sell you a used car afterwards?
Yeah, pretty much. But
Honest Bud's used car lot.
I think he had Bill DeWitt on that committee, and I think Bill DeWitt went to bat for him.
Yeah.
Then that's what you need on those committees, somebody to go to bat for you. DeWitt with the car, he's the Cardinals owner. He was close with Selig, so. But it is a double standard. He oversaw the whole thing. He knew what was going on.
He knew exactly what was going on.
And that's why, to me, it's not fair with the players.
So since we're on the Eras Committee, nice segue.
Good one.
This is a very interesting year.
A lot of guys
for the Eras Committee. Very interesting. I mean, to me, Louis Tiant should have been in 20 years ago.
Agreed.
And of course, then he sadly passes away, and now he pops up on the Eras Committee.
And now in a few days,
Right. Dave Parker is sadly spinning toward the same fate.
He's got
different conversation about Dave Parker. Dave Parker, there's a lot more To me, you
There's
have to do a
baggage.
lot.
There's baggage.
But you also have to do a lot more. You have to do a lot more statistical comparison with Dave Parker than with Louis. Even though you do a statistical comparison with El Tiante, you have to take into consideration that he was like the first great Cuban pitcher that was in the major leagues. Like that counts for something.
It should.
Along
It
with
should.
everything else that he accomplished. And then Dick Allen, who just missed.
Those are
Dick
my
Allen's
three.
never getting my vote. Because Dick Allen
Well,
was
because
mean
you
to me.
hate Dick Allen.
He was mean to me when I was 11 years old, and I haven't let it go. At Jerry Park in Montreal, it was like a minor league baseball stadium.
Jerry Park.
The Parc de Jerry, and the players would walk in right field. And when you're a little kid, and you want autographs from players, they walked in along a chain link fence, and then they all gave autographs. I mean,
What did you say to him to piss him off?
Well, I didn't. Okay.
I don't believe that for a
I
second.
did.
Were you Newman with Keith Hernandez? Nice game, pretty boy.
No, it was Mr. Allen. Mr. Allen, can I have your autograph? And he's smoking a cigarette, shockingly, and
I was going to ask if you asked him for a smoke, because then
and looked like he had gotten in about 4 a.m. and it just didn't look like he wanted to be there. And then one of my little buddies that I was with said, "Come on, Dick," and he just like scowled, and he looked right at me and scowled like I was the one that said it, and that was it. So I've been a Dick Allen fan, but Dick Allen, statistically, there's a strong case for Dick Allen to be in the Hall of Fame.
Those are my three
really
guys
strong.
right there.
Well, there's another guy. I would have thought Steve Garvey was in the Hall of Fame. He seemed to be one of the premier players in baseball during that era.
Was he ever really the best player on the Dodgers, though?
Who was better?
Or was he just? They were a collection. They were a collection of really good players.
Yeah.
With great pitching, except for when Reggie was up.
Well, he just wasn't one of the best Dodgers. He was one of the best players, certainly in the National League, if not all of baseball. He
was an RBI machine.
He also had 200 hits in like 6 out of 7 years in a row.
Yes, he did.
At the beginning of every season, he would write the number 200 on his glove to remind himself that his goal every year was 200 hits. And, he's an interesting guy, Garvey, because by traditional counting stats, tremendous RBIs, tremendous hits, tremendous batting average, made, no errors, high fielding percentage, but it's a lot of the newer stats that identify flaws and weaknesses in his game. Like, if you're hell bent on getting 200 hits a year, you're going to swing a lot. You're going to put a lot of balls.
Yes.
You're going to make a lot of outs. So he didn't draw a lot of walks. He didn't strike out. He hit into a ton of outs. Even though he batted over 300, he's still making, 400 outs a year, when somebody who walks a bunch but only hits 260 is actually making fewer outs. And part of the reason that his fielding percentage was always so high is because he's not even, throwing the ball. He was notoriously low on assists. He would never try to get the lead runner. He didn't want to throw the ball. They moved him from third base to first base because he didn't have an arm. So he spent his whole career as an elite glove guy with no arm. And so you see all the putouts, all the chances, the 997 fielding, the errorless season one year. He had he fielded 1,000 on 1,300 and some chances, didn't make an error all season, but very conservative defensive player. And so you have this guy who hits a bunch of traditional counting markers, but not the slam dunk ones. And modern metrics and analytics only make him look worse. So I think as the electorate sort of turns over, his case will get weaker instead of stronger.
Well, here's my question, though. I mean, if the committee that's voting him in is a bunch of his peers and ex-players, I'm pretty sure they don't give a rat's ass about new metrics.
Well,
so
when Paul Molitor's one of those guys, and Ozzie Smith's one of those guys, Paul Molitor's counting stats were. Paul Molitor was very similar as a hitter to Garvey. Molitor was a put the ball in play guy. He put the ball in play a lot. He didn't strike out very much.
It's an interesting group.
He ran,
because,
of course.
It would be funny to me if 8 guys made it from the committee and 2 guys get voted in by the writers. That would be hysterical. That would be a Not Guy Eddie special.
You're allowed
right
to
there.
you're allowed to vote for 3 guys on the
Yeah,
ballot.
yeah,
Right.
I know.
For me, I think Louis is the only real slam dunk. Right. The rest of the guys, I mean,
You would hope.
I have supported Dick Allen. There's some things that are very impressive. His OPS plus is like the 25th best all time. He's ahead of Hank Aaron,
Yeah.
Willie Mays. He's like
Yeah.
tied with Frank Thomas or something. Like, he's way up there. His health was not good. His longevity was not good. So he didn't get to all the
Killer.
counting stats. But there's been so many careers like that. And, you know, you wonder, like, if they're going to put Mike Trout in someday, then yeah, put Dick Allen in.
Yeah. That's a great comparison, honestly. That really is. Because, I mean, at what point do you value someone's peak? I mean, if someone has a ridiculously good peak, you can go all the way back down. I mean, look at Koufax. The longevity was not there, but his peak was just head and shoulders above everyone else.
Right.
So is that worthy of inducting someone? I mean, I do think it is. Because I mean, to Frank's point, I mean, yeah, I mean the longevity wasn't there, but when he was firing on all cylinders, I mean, that's really he was the best in the game, and I kind of think Parker was like that too. You know, I mean, we all know the cocaine scandal and everything. I mean, that hurt his chances a lot. That screwed with a lot of guys. I think that's why Hernandez never got in. Keith, obviously, but so I mean, but I mean, at what point do you look at someone's peak as being so much better than anyone else's that's what eventually you transcend into the hall? I'm curious to know what you guys think about that.
I also think on this committee, like Rocco making the point of Bill DeWitt stumping for Bud Selig.
Yeah.
Like there's Negro League players on this ballot that their stats are off the charts, man. And
yeah, that makes it so much tougher.
Like what historians in this group that's going to like open other people's eyes to how dominant they were at their time, and it is a board meeting for all intents and purposes, and you're really a lot of lobbying for names, and people haven't heard these names, and I never looked at them like that. And if the right person could turn this thing upside down.
I'm curious. Go ahead, Rocco. Go ahead.
I was gonna say this committee thing is I love this shit. I study it. I go back to history. I write the books. I know a lot of stuff about these Negro League players. To me, the committees are so much more fascinating than the regular ballots, because the regular ballots you could pretty much track and who's going to get in as it's going. The committee, you don't know until that's going to happen. So I spent so much time trying to figure this out. And it's Frank brought up a great point, and I think it's the pivotal point in this whole thing, is that these guys can only vote for 3 people. So it's 16 people on the committee. What's it? 8 nominees, and you can only vote for 3 of them. So you look to see who's on that committee, and Leslie Heafy, she's on the committee. She's a professor and a writer, Negro League historian. Larry Lester is also a Negro League historian. Leslie was on the committee when Bud Fowler got elected, along with Buck O'Neill. Those 2 in there are really going to be pushing for one of the Negro League players, and they came close. The last time those 2 guys, Josh and Vic, were on the ballot, they had 10 votes. Vic had 10 votes, and John Donaldson, I call him Josh Donaldson. John Donaldson had 10. He had 8. But to me, John Donaldson's the player. I think he's going to get in.
He very well.
I think one of the 2 are going to get in. He was the shorter on votes last time, but when you look at it, in 1952, the Pittsburgh Courier, I learned this when I wrote my book, did a study on, they made their all Negro League team. John Donaldson was the first team pitcher. He was one of the first team pitchers. That's in 1952. So Donaldson's tough because a lot of his career came before organized Negro League baseball. So you don't get any real stats with him. He was Satchel Paige before Satchel Paige. He was the guy that the Negro League players picked as a first team pitcher. He was on the ballot in 2006 when they inducted, 17 Negro League players. He was one of the guys who didn't make it. Vic wasn't. He wasn't on that ballot. He was receiving votes on the all Negro League team. So I think he's one of them. Also, construction man. I'm sorry, I'm going long here, but I think what helps Louis Tiant is Tony Perez is on this committee.
Is he? I didn't know that.
Tony Perez has not been on a committee since 2011. He was on the 2011 committee because Davey Concepcion was up on that as a possible inductee. So he trumped for Concepcion and got him close. It was the closest Dave ever got to the Hall of Fame. He got 8 votes from that committee, all because of Tony Perez. Tony Perez has a quote about Louis Tiant. I think it might have been from when he passed away, where he said, growing up in Cuba, Louis Tiant was a hero to the whole entire country. He loves Louis. So Perez is going to be in that room pushing for Louis Tiant. That's what I think is going to help him. I don't see how the math works out with the new voting that more than 2 could get in on this.
Wow.
So my guess is Louis, and my hope is Louis and Donaldson there.
I hope you're right.
And one last interesting thing, I'm
sorry.
Ken Boyer was another interesting one too, because on the face value, I don't think he belongs with that, but you got Ozzie Smith on there, Cardinals, Joe Torre, Cardinals.
Interesting.
Dick Cagle, Cardinals writer, Dayton Moore, Midwest Royals Cardinals. Midwest Cardinals Royals guy. I don't think that they'd be able to push him over the top, but those are guys that it's a lot of Cardinals. It's a lot of red in that room.
Yeah.
Here's the one guy we haven't talked about. I want to get everyone's viewpoint on this. Emily, I don't know how old y'all are. I know for at least Mike and I, Tommy John was a very good pitcher during that run. Not great, not elite, but he had a lot of counting stats that Frank may be able to allude to. But his name, and I want to hear what when you hear the name Tommy John, do you think of a pitcher or the guy that the surgery that goes on way too often is named
or the Yankee color announcer?
Emily, what about you?
I definitely think of the surgery at this point. Yeah. I know that he's a pitcher, so it's not that like I'm just learning that for the first time, but I definitely think of the surgery at this point in time.
But that's huge too.
As far as whether he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, I'm not sure.
That is huge, though. I mean, it's the Hall of Fame,
though. I mean, it's Rocco. I forgot what event you were at, but you saw his cast and you sent me a picture of it. I was like,
yeah,
that's awesome.
That was awesome. Yeah.
From the first Tommy John surgery, and now it's in the Hall of Fame.
The doctor should be in the Hall of Fame.
Dr. Frank Jobe, you're damn right. But I mean, last time I was in Cooperstown, they have it luckily encased in glass so you can't smell it because I don't know. I don't want to know. But I think. I was driving down there today and I was listening to MLB radio, and Spielbergs and CJ Nikowski were talking about Tommy John versus CC Sabathia, and that was a really interesting conversation to listen to because Tommy John had the longevity, but he also had a bionic new arm. So he pitched till what? He was 46. Yeah, I might be wrong about that, but I think he was 46, 47. So the counting stats are there. But I do think, he should be, just for what he's done for baseball in general, now that, I don't even know the percentage of pitchers that are having Tommy John before they hit the majors, but once they do, and now you're seeing guys have their second one. Nate Eovaldi,
not enough people are talking about that.
Buehler, Ohtani, for the love of God, had a second one. So, again, like I said, there is that part of the hall that it is a baseball museum, and you kind of have to look at it as such. It's not the pearly gates of baseball heaven, where if you didn't hit 330 for your career, that you are automatically let in. There has to be something in there where it is about what you did on the field and what you did for what Tommy John and what the surgery did for pitchers, and and what Louis Tiant did for Cuban ball players and what he meant to a lot of Latin players. That has to play a factor in it. It just can't be numbers. It can't be all numbers. And it does have to be, again, it's the Hall of Fame. It's not the Hall of Numbers. We have plenty of places for that. There are enough websites dealing with the numbers,
But isn't that what the rest of the museum is for? It's
Right,
not
that's
like
the
it's
museum.
where the
yeah.
plaques are is
See,
the only section of that
I
museum.
agree. I agree with that. Yes, and that's where I'm torn, Emily. I mean, like does Tommy
Give him
John
an
deserve
exhibit.
the plaque, or does he or should that stinky cast be there and that's good?
Stinky Cast is in the Smithsonian.
Is
Like
it?
to me, I hear Tommy John and I
So
think of
what the
like
hell was in Cooperstown?
Well,
They
that's
show
that
you the
was
little
it.
video that they do. Is it
The
the
event-
ligament? Because
The
that would be
event,
even
no,
cooler.
the event I went to was Tommy John giving the cast to the Smithsonian to put
So
it
then
in
what
the
the hell?
Smithsonian.
I don't know.
Well,
I
I
saw
mean, that
some-
was that
it's
was
right next to
cool.
the Cosby sweater.
There you go.
Oh, jeez. The Lou Carnesecca sweater. Let's not
Yeah.
call it the
Yeah.
Cosby sweater.
But I like for like now, like a deeper dive on Tommy John, like we were going, as Sean said, we were old enough to see him pitch, like he was pitching.
Yeah.
I mean, I would compare him to Don Sutton. Like that's what I
It's
would
a good
look
comparison.
at. That's what I would
Good
look at
comparison.
statistically, right? Don Sutton got the 300 wins that got him in the Hall of Fame. He was never the best pitcher in baseball ever. He wasn't as good a fielder as Tommy John.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
you guys saw his peak. We didn't. We
Yeah, no,
think
we caught him at
Chris
the end.
and I got him at the
Yeah.
end, and
Yeah.
He wasn't very good at the end. Frank, what are not enough people talking about Tommy John?
I have in fact done a NEPTA Tommy John post
Well,
that had
well.
some good factoids in there. But to your point about the cast and the museum and all of this stuff, putting the cast in the back in some exhibit, that's a curiosity. The plaques are testaments to bodies of work of these players that are some of the best and most iconic to ever play.
I can.
When you hear Tommy John, sure, you think of the surgery, but it goes hand in hand with the context of his whole career. One thing that not enough people talk about is
He
that
said the thing.
Tommy John made more starts after the surgery than before.
Yeah.
And he had already been in the league 13 years when he had it. So he made 318 starts before the surgery, 382 after. The man started 700 games. That is the 8th most
Yes.
ever. He made 700 starts, pitched till he was 46. It's not just that he was the first to have the surgery. It's that he had a full career's worth of innings afterwards. And he wasn't young when he got it. He wasn't getting the surgery in high school like kids now. He made 700 starts. He was, he was durable despite being a guy who famously needed Tommy John surgery. And he wound up pitching more innings than Jim Cott, than Old Haas, than Tom Glavine. He had more WAR than Drysdale, Bunning, Ruffin.
That's the thing right there.
He had more wins than Blyleven, Robin Roberts, Fergie Jenkins. These guys are all in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And there's Tommy.
But how many innings did those guys pitch in comparison? This guy he pitched until he was almost 50, and he didn't reach 300 wins, and he didn't even come close to 3,000 strikeouts.
Exactly.
Now,
So
I'm
the
not
counting
necessarily
stats,
just like
So the usual counting stats for that era are not there.
Right.
But I mean, Tommy John's a strange case, man. It really is, because I mean,
Totally.
like you said, he had an entire career after he got experimental surgery.
Yeah.
Mind you.
The interesting thing about this era committee ballot is it is chock full of guys that most people probably think are already in. I couldn't tell you how many people I talked to that are like, what do you mean Steve Garvey's not in the Hall of Fame, or Tommy John, or Dave Parker? People assume Dave Parker's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
He's in very elite company if you look at the stats. But, interestingly, it isn't all of those guys that are slam dunk picks on this when you really dig into it. Like Tion, yes. Tion is
I agree.
I'm a hard yes. I hope he gets in.
Yeah. We've been trying for a long time,
but
man.
Some of these other guys, it's like
There's a case to be made for all of them.
For all of them. That's why they're on the ballot.
Ken Boyer was probably better than Scott Rowland.
Yeah, probably.
Ken Boyer was probably a better third baseman than Scott Rowland.
honestly,
Like the
to
eye
Frank's
test
point,
would have probably told you that, and then statistically it might have told you that as well.
Yeah.
And he played on winning teams, so they had similar paths, right? They had similar paths. You know what I heard back to Tommy John? What I heard, Frank, when you said how many starts that Tommy John made after he had surgery, that there might be a shot for Jacob deGrom after all. Like maybe another, a couple of times around the block with elbow surgery, he might end up having a career at some point. He's gonna have to pitch to 50 to do it because he's not a
At
young man
least.
anymore. But
And maybe he'll get to 100 wins.
At least. But, I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, brutal. But, but it's funny. To Frank's point, which is absolutely correct about, a lot of these guys think that these guys have been in the Hall of Fame for a long time. I have a video. I'll show you, one of these days. I'm talking to Dave Stewart, and I was at the winter meetings or whatever, and I'm sitting there. Dave Stewart and I were at the bar. We had a bunch of drinks, and all of a sudden we get onto Louis Tion. Even Dave Stewart, who's a Hall of Fame pitcher, thought Louis was in the Hall of Fame. So, like, these guys, it's like some guys just assume, you just assume these guys were that big that they're already in the Hall of Fame. And so Dave Stewart made me take a video of him sending a message to Louis Tion, which is like, I thought you were in the Hall, brother. That's a fucking shame. And that's literally my best Dave Stewart impression. But there are certain guys that should be in and that other Hall of Famers believe should be in. Tion's one of them. And I think he heads the list. And I think, like Frank said, I think we're all in agreement that he should get in. And I was talking to Dan. I was down in Florida for Thanksgiving, and I was talking to Dan Tion, what have you. And I'm still curious to see if they show up because what Louis always said is like, they put me in after I die. You say, fuck them. You don't go.
Yeah.
I don't want you to go. When I'm dead, you fuck you. So I'm very curious
Sounds
about
about right.
Dan about it. So we're going to see what happens. But if he does go, we're going to have a big party in Cooperstown. That's for sure.
All right, look, I want to go around the room. I got to change it up a little bit because this is just mind-blowing to me. Mike, start with you. Mike, Emily, Rocco, Chris, Frank, the Golden Bat rule. I thought it was a joke at first. Mike, you go first, then we'll go to Emily and Rocco. But is there any floor to the stupidity of the man running this sport?
No. There's no floor. But so this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Right? This is
bad.
Like I heard some I was around my family for 5 days. I heard a lot of really dumb stuff. This is the dumbest thing I've heard. This is the dumbest thing I've heard in a while. But so now I can't help myself because I can't help myself. So now I start thinking. Now I'm going to arbitration, and you're offering me 17.6, and I want 21.1, and you're making a case why I'm only worth 17.6. And my agent goes, yeah, but you used them 14 times in the Golden Bat situation last year. That's got to be worth another 1.5 million, right? It's just that I don't even know. Like Savannah Bananas is a cute thing, right? And it's fun, and it's like a minor league Harlem Globetrotters event on steroids, and they're packing regular stadiums now, and they're bringing in, Ryan Howard's entrance this year in Philadelphia is epic. If you haven't seen it, it's just unbelievable when they announce him, and he takes the cloak off, and it's Ryan Howard, and it's great. And former players come in and play a game here and there, and that's awesome. That's not Major League Baseball. He can't differentiate. He can't differentiate what is a shtick and what's core to the game of baseball. He just can't. He has no ability to. It's like he's playing in his backyard, right? Where, if you hit it over the fence, it's an out because the dog's going to eat the ball. So if it's a homer, you're out. That's next. So it's
That's
Golden.
basically that's the ground rules at the Trop. Actually, that's what that is. Yeah.
I mean, it's like
if the dog gets it, it's a triple.
It's the I don't even know how he thinks of this. Like, how does this pop into your head? Was he eating French fries at McDonald's? He's like, oh, these are gold. Hey, how about a Golden Bat? Like,
Emily, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I hate it, and I hate everything about it. I think that the things I like about baseball the most are what set them apart from the other big four sports, so to speak. And Manfred and the owners, they just desperately want to be those sports. They want to be a sport where the offense controls the ball and you can put the ball in the hands of the best player on your team with the game on the line. That's why we have a clock in the inning. The pitchers are limited on how many throws they can do to check the runner. And now being able to put the bat in the hands of your best player in the ninth inning I saw someone refer to it as quote signature moment. What makes baseball great is those guys, they're the ones who have the moments all the time. I mean, we see Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, they hit 40, 50, 60 home runs a year, but you might miss, your NLCS MVP of 2021, Eddie Rosario. He would not have been in those moments to win that award because some of them were in the ninth inning and they would have put Freddie Freeman up in that spot or whoever else. So, I mean, the Rajai Davis in the World Series in 2016, like these are moments in sports history and baseball history that make this sport so different and make it so beautiful. This isn't football. It's not basketball. It's not hockey. And that's what's great about it. It's a sport dominated by defense. And I can understand trying to limit that to some degree, but this is gimmick ridiculous. And it's not going to bring how many. I mean, the league makes more and more money every year. So it's like, why is the run to just desperately change the sport into something it's not? I really just don't get it. Show the game and
Testify.
Rocco, what about you? Does anybody think there's even any sort of goodness to this idea? I do not.
I've seen a couple people on social media ask about, why is this so bad type of thing, but I don't even want to deal with them. I think there's the whole gambling side to it too. That's the,
Didn't even think of that.
I'm all right. I'm going to go bet $50 that Shohei Ohtani's going to hit a homer today. And I'm getting these odds. Well, now I see for these odds, if he hits a golden homer and his golden at bat, it's now, plus 1,500. All right, I'm going to try to put my $50 on that and take a shot there, whatever that is. It's, there's that aspect to it too. It's all about, I think, creating moments and doing that kind of stuff and creating that clip of holding that bat moment and he hit a homer, a grand slam, all that. And that's what endures, not the other stupidity. I don't even really like spend the time talking about it. It wouldn't even fly among our friends. If we had a group of friends playing wiffle ball and said, all right, for this game, at any point in time, we could put Chris Vitale up because he's, batting 950 in wiffle ball this year. The other team would say, screw that, So I don't know. It's a gimmick. Baseball, to Emily's point, was never the sport of gimmicks, while other sports were. It cheapens the sport, I think, and it's just more artificially created moments by legislation by Manfred.
Yeah. How about you, Frank? Before we get to Chris, I'm dying to see. I can't tell which way Chris is leaning on this topic.
It's great.
Why can't we just have one league that's just actual baseball? Why can't we have that at the highest level of the game in the world? Why can't that just be the actual rules? And then, do the gimmicks in other places. There's a time and place for it. Cannot there be one highest league that is real, actual baseball? It drives me crazy. Think about the moments you would never have if this was the rule. You're not going to put a bat in Bucky Dent's hands. You're not. Or Tom Lawless. Remember the epic bat flip and everything? The guy who had hit one home run all year? Look, nobody's going to let him swing. Okay, the moments make themselves. Guys rise to the occasion, and if you do have a big slugger due up potentially that inning, but you need somebody to reach, the building anticipation of watching those three guys leading up to Juan Soto or Aaron Judge or whatever, that's the drama. That's where the entertainment happens. If you don't like baseball now, but you're going to like it with the golden batter, this might not be the game for you. If that makes the difference,
the All-Star game.
I just don't understand.
Yes.
I don't understand it.
Chris, go.
I love Rob Manfred, and I think he's the best thing that ever happened to baseball. Thank you. I'll be here all week.
Yeah.
No,
We're not
no,
paying
There's
the
someone
ransom.
slightly
That's
off
your
camera with a
hostage.
gun to your head.
That's your
All
that's your
right, I know.
hostage tape right there.
All
That's
right,
the
now
we'll
I'm
know.
blinking 3 times. No, okay. No, like Emily just said, you know what? Try it in the All-Star game because nobody gives a shit about the All-Star game anyway. Boom. There's your video game version of baseball, banana ball, whatever the hell you want to call it. Fine. You do this in a Major League Baseball game. I mean, it's insane. I said yesterday, I was like, you know what? Rob Manfred is going to turn me into fucking, excuse my French, that's not French. He's going to turn me into Michael Douglas and falling down because eventually he's going to make you snap. Because what the hell is this guy thinking? What is this? You know, I mean, like everybody said. I mean, what was the game that it was the Braves and John Sterling called the game. It went until 2:30 in the morning.
Rick
And
Camp.
the pitcher,
Rick
Rick
Camp.
Camp, the Rick Camp game. Think about that. These are. Ah! So
Aaron
you're not going
Boone.
to do that again. Even
That
Aaron
would not
Boone,
happen.
I mean,
No?
you know what? That might have saved us as Yankee fans 7 years of him being the manager. But still, that moment was the best thing. I think I woke up half of Brooklyn when I was screaming when he hit that home run. But really, I mean, like, wouldn't you just put up anyone else but Aaron Boone in that situation? That is not. Look, this is not. It's a great idea if you're playing on a PlayStation. It's a great idea if you're playing a video game or you're playing wiffle ball and it's like, wait a minute, I'm Mickey Mantle again. You know, I'm coming up, or I'm Gary Sheffield and I'm doing this. No, just enough is enough. Eventually, you have to leave something alone. Like, I know. I complain, like, why can't the game just stay the same? It's never going to stay the same. It's going to evolve, but it doesn't have to evolve into the worst possible iteration of itself because this genius at the helm has no idea what the hell he's doing. It needs to stop. This is nuts. This is enough to put old Bobby in a home in a straitjacket. So it can't happen. It's stupid. I can only hope that the union in the next CBA says, you know what, you're nuts. We're putting you in a home, Ranford. We're putting you in a home because this is absolutely insane. And I mean, he's done some crazy shit, but for a guy that's had shitty ideas to really top himself is really insane. And he has somehow managed to take every baseball fan, aside from like the one or two that you see that think it's a great idea. And if you look on Twitter, they're usually the crypto Bitcoin guys. They're like, oh, this is great. Yeah, you know why it's great? Because the house always wins and I know what you're fucking doing. But no, enough. Look, Rob Manfred has somehow united every baseball fan by saying, this guy is nuts. I've been saying it for ages. I'm sorry, this guy's nuts. Get him the hell out of there. And aside from that, I got nothing. I'm just so happy that Kyle Higashioka got a 2-year deal today. Sorry.
I am happy. I am thankful that he did it on Chaos Tuesday because it did. Like
All right, real quick before we get. Go ahead, Rocco.
We're doing this now?
This gold at bat's going to happen too. We're all laughing at it.
No,
We're going to be sitting here at some point, and it's going to be, here's the golden at bat sponsored by DraftKings, and
Of course, it's going to be sponsored by DraftKings.
you sponsor that across league wide. How many millions and millions of dollars is that? So
of the million tweets from former players on this today who were losing their mind.
They hate it.
The best one that I saw,
it's not even like the old heads. It's guys that retired like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks it sucks. Oh,
Look,
God.
so Chipper Jones posted just simple, like our crawler. That was literally his tweet. And Wade Boggs' response was, I'd like to have 10 at bats a game, Chipper.
yeah.
All right, real quick before we get out of here, we'll go around again. Anybody hearing anything? Where's he going to go? I really was praying it would be the Mets or Red Sox right before the show went on the air to capture Mike's response in real time. Frank, let's go around the room the other way. Frank, you can start. Where do you think he ends up?
I don't see Steve Cohen being outbid. If he wants him, he's going to get him. Advantage Mets.
Yeah.
El Jefe.
To be honest with you, at this point, I don't give a shit anymore. I'm so sick of it. I hope he just pulls a LeBron and says, "I'm taking my talents to South Beach," and he winds up a fucking Marlin. I don't care. I don't care anymore. I don't care.
Rocco, what about you?
I agree with Frank. There's been so much smoke around Cohen wanting him and doing everything he can to get him. I think if it was up to Soto, he'd like to stay with the Yankees. I think he enjoyed being in the Bronx last year, playing with Aaron Judge, that whole experience. But I just think that it's going to be an offer he can't refuse type of thing from Cohen.
Emily, what about you?
Yankee.
Yankee?
Mm-hmm.
I
think
agree
it's
with
Yankee.
Emily. My bad joke aside, I agree with Emily. I think he stays. I do. I think he stays.
I know
Mike?
it's not going to be Toronto.
No.
It never
Crossed
is.
them off the list.
Fucking-
Never is.
The team that scares me, honestly, because it's going to be Soto and Hal, and then he's going to have to make a decision. It's going to be Cohen and Hal. Like,
Yeah.
Hal's going to draw a line. Cohen's going to be like, no problem. We'll give you an extra $20 million. And then Soto's
Pissing
going to have to
contest.
make a decision. Is enough? The Phillies scare me in this. The Phillies scare me in this. I am not sleeping on the Phillies at all.
I think they trade for Trout, but that's a story for another day.
Well, that's the only place he said he'd go.
I know.
I think
But-
it comes down. Is Soto going to trade money for the fame of wearing the Yankee pinstripes? He might.
That's why I think he comes back. I think he likes
Depends
it.
on how much money.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially because the Yankees can pay it. You know, it's not gonna be like, oh, please just give us because of the lore.
that-
Like they
But
can
that goes
afford
back to
to pony up.
Hal's life is fiscal responsibility.
Yeah, but he could defer him to 2138.
Yeah, $1 billion deferred by the Dodgers now. Anyway,
That's
I have a
unbelievable.
quick question. Did any of Boris's clients take deferred money? Because I have not paid that close.
Snell
did.
Did that happen?
No,
Snell did.
Snell did.
Snell,
Yeah,
Snell
okay.
did.
All right.
I don't know if
just
Chapman
curious. I
did.
didn't know if that was like a kind of an off the table thing with Boris, but
yeah. All right, listen, all thanks. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
So, Emily, when's the next Breaking Balls podcast?
yeah, what the
I'm
hell?
actually recording tomorrow night.
Nice.
Believe it or
really?
not. I'm back. Yeah, I am.
You can share
Back, baby.
we should have shared the
Back,
Breaking
baby.
Balls hotline so people could call in and compliment you on your lovely Festivus tree.
Thank
It's a
you.
lovely-
They should.
it's
It's
a
just
lovely
gonna
tree.
talk about
It's
baseball.
a
at all.
nice tree.
Every
Can
ornament.
I call in with a high pitched voice and pretend I'm Aaron Boone?
Yes.
Hi, Emily. It's Aaron Boone.
When's your show turning the corner?
It's Aaron. Everything's right in front of you. I just wanted to give you a lovely holiday message.
I mean, that is really nice. I can see why he uses that method. That would be really sweet of you.
No, I'll do it anyway just because. Or it might be Aaron Boone. You never know.
Rocco, are you
You
working
do
on
breaking balls,
anything?
baby.
Are you working on any writing at this point, or are you
He
just
just went
AD?
blank.
Are you just hoping you get any of your winter teams in a conference tournament?
Rocco's had enough, ladies and gentlemen.
Rocco's had enough. It's the Expo thing.
It must be.
His
Jolly Park.
computer just moved to Washington.
Nice.
I'm back.
There he is.
Hey. There he is.
No. I'm trying to find out our scores on our basketball games. We got big basketball games going on tonight. Oh, we're up by 9. We're up by 8. Well, oh no, we won by 8. Awesome. Game over.
Wow.
Big win.
Good win.
That's
Good
right.
win.
Road games. And our women won too. Awesome. Men's and
Oh,
women's.
that's
games
a-
also.
That's an invested AD. That's an
We're
invested
right
AD
there.
right there.
That is an
We're-
invested AD.
Oh, he
right
lost.
there.
No, he won.
Holy shit. Jesus.
We're 9-1, ranked 22nd in the country for scholarship JUCOs. We're in good shape for
Oh, really?
basketball.
Nice.
Yeah. Good
Nice.
ball there. Good ball.
Pretty good.
Good for you, Frank. What do you got going on? What key your Twitter followers are the ones that should be following you? What anything up your sleeve on any new NEPTAs?
I haven't decided if I'm gonna write a whole tirade about the golden at bat rule, but
I liked your stuff today.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that's been driving me crazy since I read about it. But
I was.
you may be interested to know that Harold Baines played more games in the field than Tim Anderson.
And he took one less punch than Tim Anderson that we know about.
That's just
Anderson-
what we know of.
Tim Anderson's been in the league 9 years. Still has not played as many games in the field as DH Harold Baines, who belongs in the Hall of Fame. So
That's
my
actually
God.
really incredible. No shit,
It's
really.
incredible. It is incredible.
Chris,
Oh my
well, what's
God.
going on at Ball 9 other than this greatness?
I don't know. I just got back from Florida. What the hell do I know?
Boca Vista.
I was in Del Boca Vista. I had my shoes off in the clubhouse. You got to see all this in the shuffleboard court. A couple things that I'm trying to get ready for next season and try to not be so fucking angry at the game. But Rob Manfred is not making it easy, man. I'm trying to bring my blood pressure down and not be so, old man screaming at clouds, which is kind of difficult. But I don't know. I don't know. Can I just enjoy Christmas and then worry about baseball after?
Oh no, we're gonna get a
worry
hold.
about it.
We're gonna get a
I do
whole
want to
deluge
start a
of golden
thing. I do
bat.
want to start a thing. I got a thing. I do want to start a thing called Ball 9 Beer League. So anyone who goes to a game can just review the beers and the beer experience. Yeah, I don't know. What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong with a bunch of
I'm already in that Hall of
sending in
Fame, so I got
videos?
the. Would I have to give up my Hall of Fame?
Possibly go wrong.
Would I have to give up my ballpark Hall of Fame beer drinking plaque if I came out of retirement? And
I will build trophies for this freaking thing. But again, it's I don't give a shit. I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know what's going on. I'm enjoying a little bit of the holiday season, and I'll get back to worrying about it later. But I don't know. I just want to get through. I'm very curious to see what happens December 8th. And I'm gonna keep talking about Louis Tion all I can because we got to get him in, man. We have to. Yeah. So
I have
we're gonna get a lot of golden bat next week when the winter meetings kick off because I'm sure
the golden bat. And I'm so happy I'm not going to the winter meetings because the first time I ever went to the winter meetings, I told Emily I was at the winter meetings, and there was somebody who smelled at the winter meetings, and that's a long story.
Rocco, what do you got?
I have one thing. Today would have been my dad's 92nd birthday.
Wow.
My dad and his twin brother, the Duke, who Chris knows the both of them.
Oh my God!
They would have been 92 today. They're the reason that I love baseball. When I was born, my Uncle Duke and my dad got me this ball in the hospital. It's all signed by my relatives. Some of them are even still alive. And I got a baseball on the day I was born, and 50 years later, I'm still sitting here talking ball with you guys. And
that's amazing.
Awesome. It's awesome.
Hey, you know what? As somebody who knew both those guys, your dad was the king. Your dad was the king. But just saying, Rocco's dad would show up before, well before cell phone cameras. Rocco's dad would show up with he almost should have had a truck, like a video truck at Little League games. Filmed everything. He was the coolest guy. Uncle Duke was a badass too. But your dad was like CBS of Belleville, New Jersey. He recorded everything. It was the coolest thing ever. So cheers to those guys.
I actually have his VHS tapes right here. I'm
there you go.
Digital. They're propping up my camera when we do this.
Rocco has the best. I mean, he's like the archives of northeastern New Jersey sports with that stuff. He really is. He really is. Jesus, you have the Rock Bowl thing.
That's it. Yeah, it's on these tapes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. When I wrote Raju on the headband to try and have solidarity with Jim McMahon after Roselle yelled at him, and he wrote Roselle on the headband. I mean, Rocco's got everything on tape. So. Do not mess with Rocco. He's got everything.
That's
Mike, we going to check back in? Mike, we checking back in next week on the winter meetings?
Oh, we will check in on the winter meetings.
Why don't we go maybe Wednesday night?
Do that.
Just go to the meetings. It's easy. No. It's boring as shit.
Winter meetings.
All right. Everyone, thank you
all guys.
Take care.
Thank you. Happy belated birthday, Frank.
Ladies and gentlemen, good night.
Thanks, guys.
Adios, muchachos and muchachas.
Adios.
I don't know how to get out of here.
Later, El Jefe.
Later, fellas. Just stop it. Just stop it.
I'm stopping it. All right. And with that note, I will stop it. All right. Yeah, we'll hook up next week. Winter meetings will be a couple days in.
Yeah, there should be some more signings in the meantime.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Some of the dominoes are starting to fall. Snell signing before Soto was not something I expected to have happen, and Kikuchi going to the Angels was not something I expected to have happen. So maybe we get some signings, and
I'd like to get Soto done because I think it's kind of slowing down the rest of the progress.
I agree with that.
People got to know where their funds are going to be allocated.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bats.
Yeah,
there's a lot of bats, and from a fantasy standpoint, like we're in December now, and starting to think about focusing on your draft. And when you don't know where guys are going to be, it's kind of hard to.
Sure.
It's kind of hard to figure that out.
All right, bud. We will. Great show. Great show. That was a lot of fun. Those guys. That's always a good group.
Yep.
We'll catch up to you next Wednesday, 8:30 Eastern PM. Stay warm.
Nice to the multitude of you that joined us. Thank you.
Yes. We'll catch you all next week.
Yep. Be well.